Trump's, quote, big, beautiful bill turned out to a big, awful failure on Friday as MAGA Republicans opposed by voting against it as their demands were not met, tanking the bill that Trump so desired, which included the debt ceiling increase to $5 trillion. Meanwhile, Trump took to Truth Social to whine about the failure of his attempt to raise the national debt. Speaker Johnson a day earlier spoke with confidence of having the votes and that the bill would pass with no issues. Now his position as Speaker might be on the chopping block. The debt ceiling has never ever been raised to $5 trillion at once in the entire history of the United States, to which some MAGA Republicans voiced their concerns about such proposition.
He's going to be delighted with every provision in a bill this large, but everyone can be satisfied. And we're very, very close to that. If you do more on SAW, you have to find more in savings. So these are the dials, the metaphorical dials I'm talking about. That's what is involved here. When you're trying to craft a piece of legislation that is this comprehensive and this complex, it requires a lot of thought and deliberation.
On Capitol Hill voting down President Trump's mega bill today in the Budget Committee. NBC Sahil Kapoor is on Capitol Hill with the latest on that. Sahil, take us inside that Budget Committee hearing this morning. What happened, and did leadership expect this vote to fail?
No, they did not expect that, Gabe. It's a significant setback for Speaker Mike Johnson and for the Trump agenda. Essentially, what we saw is Republican leaders tried to call bluff on the hardliners, and the hardliners cast their votes, showed that they're not playing around in their demands. Specifically, 5 of the Republicans on that committee defected and voted with Democrats. That's Chip Roy, Ralph Norman, Josh Brecheen, Andrew Clyde. The 5th one, Lloyd Smucker, his was simply procedural so they can bring the bill up again. So the reality is there are 4 Republicans who are opposing this bill. Their beef is largely that the package, in their view, uses a bunch of budget gimmicks and procedural tricks to essentially front load the benefits and the goodies there while backloading the spending cuts and the challenging, the painful items. They insist that those cuts and savings be moved up faster in order to win their votes. Otherwise, they call the package swampy and very typical of what happens in Washington. Nevertheless, the House Budget Committee Chairman, Jody Arrington, decided to remain optimistic about the future of this, said there's some value in putting these members on the record so they can kind of have the clarity in terms of what they need to do next. Take a listen to some more of what Jody Arrington said.
Their hearts are in the right place. Their motives are pure. I share their convictions, and I share their desired outcomes of changing some of these policies and making the bill better. This is not the right venue to do it. That's what I told them, but they have to make those decisions themselves. But no regrets. We debate, we call questions, because that's what leaders do, and I think we make progress today.
Now, it's notable that soon after that vote, the Freedom Caucus put out a tweet insisting that no, they're not actually taking down the Trump agenda. They just want a little more time. They just want a few more pieces of it to be negotiated. So they're leery of this idea that they're actually tanking the Donald Trump agenda, which is what gets us to Sunday evening when Jody Arrington and the Budget Committee plans to meet at 10 p.m., highly unusual, especially for Sunday, to do another vote at this.
And Sahil, you bring up not wanting to upset President Trump. How would that look like over the next couple of days? It feels like Republicans may be waiting for him to get directly involved like he has before. Is that what you're seeing?
Yeah, we should expect President Trump to get more involved here. He is the only one who can get 218 Republicans on the same page for something this challenging. It is his agenda at the end of the day. It's about many items that he campaigned on. And these hardliners, the reason Trump is so essential to this is that these hardliners who are holding out right now represent dark red districts where Trump is particularly popular, much more so than congressional Republican leadership. And a lot of these voters who support Trump want their members of Congress to toe the line on the Trump agenda, not to be obstacles, which is why some members of the Freedom Caucus are ultimately sensitive about this. So if they get some of what they want, such as moving the Medicaid work requirements up, I talked yesterday to House Majority Leader Steve Scalise. He said that date is going to move up from 2029. He didn't say when. So that's what they got to balance here, giving these hardliners some of what they want without alienating the swing district and centrist Republicans who are going to be key to whether they can hold the House majority. They're already feeling the heat on the Medicaid cuts. What they don't want is even more political pain in the near term.
And so we had some reporting yesterday of a potential deal between moderates who want an expanded SALT cap and hardliners that want the bill's cuts to come online sooner. What do we know about that?
That's right. And you just bring up the other big headache that Speaker Mike Johnson and Republican leaders have. There's a determined bloc of about half a dozen Republicans from high tax states, mostly New York, that are threatening to take down this entire bill over the state and local tax deduction, specifically, or known as SALT. Specifically, this $30,000 cap that's in the bill currently, they say that is not nearly good enough for them. So they want that cap expanded. And Speaker Johnson has said, if that cap is expanded, that's going to cost money, which means they need more savings, which gets us back to that Medicaid question. Chip Roy said he wants those Medicaid work requirements to take effect immediately, right away. It's not clear he's going to get that. But if they can move that date up from 2029 up by a few years, they could save a significant amount of money, which could be used to fund SALT. So this is the Rubik's Cube that Speaker Johnson is playing with. Can he get it all done by Sunday? That's his new self-imposed deadline when the Budget Committee plans to meet. And by the way, Gabe, that's going to be essential if Mike Johnson is going to meet that deadline, his own deadline of getting this done by Memorial Day weekend, getting the full bill out of the House.
And Saha Kapoor, I know you'll have a busy weekend, and we'll be up on Sunday.
Where President Trump's agenda is in limbo one day before it's set to come up for a key vote in the Rules Committee. After more meetings today, there's still no deal consensus among Republicans on capping the state and local tax deduction, the issue that has several moderate Republicans withholding their support. At the same time, some hardliners are digging in for more spending cuts that kick in and for them to kick in sooner. Speaker Johnson said meetings will continue over the weekend to find an agreement, and that will take some give and take. Take a listen.
Not everybody.
My NBC News colleague Sahil Kapoor is on Capitol Hill with all of the latest. So Sahil, I know you've been running around trying to get us an answer. What's the latest on President Trump's agenda on Capitol Hill? Are things getting better or worse for House Republicans? Is Speaker Johnson in for a big headache here, or are they really trying to get through with this massive bill?
Well, Yamiche, if you listen to the way Speaker Johnson is talking, you would think things are getting better. The reality of the situation is I'm not convinced that that's the case, because simply the policy disputes seem very significant on a whole bunch of issues. You mentioned SALT, the state and local deduction. That's one of them. There's also a major debate happening within the Republican conference about Medicaid and the cuts and the various spending restrictions that they're putting on accessing Medicaid benefits. Is also a question of SNAP, formerly known as food stamps, what they do with that. Take a listen to how Congressman Nick LaLota, a New York Republican from Long Island, talked about where they are now.
Still got a lot of work to do, not just on SALT, but on SNAP, on Medicaid, and some of the government benefits issues. Still got a lot of work to do if we're going to get this plane to land here in the next week. We're not further, but we're probably not closer either. Still a lot of specifics that need to be hashed out.
Now, it's true the committees have passed their various pieces and sent them to the budget panel, which is basically supposed to staple them together and move them to the House floor. But we also know some of those committee products are not ready for prime time, especially the tax legislation, which LaLota and several other Republicans are threatening to tank unless they find a compromise, specifically on the state and local tax deduction. So there's plenty of work to do, because moving one of the dials on the state and local tax piece is going to affect the entire rest of the package and could potentially alienate Republicans on the other end.
And as you talk about all of these different factions, we almost seem that almost every time there's an interconference fight here with Republicans, moderates are the ones that end up caving and giving in here. So is that what we're looking at here ultimately, given the fact that we're seeing the way things are developing?
Well, historically, that is how things have traditionally worked in the House when Republicans are in the majority. The hardliners have tended to flex because they've been willing to tank the bills, and the moderates and the centrists and vulnerable and swing districts have caved because they're ultimately not willing to go against the party line. In this case, I'm not so sure, Yamiche, because the House Freedom Caucus has softened a lot this year. They've threatened to tank this budget in various iterations of it. They've threatened to tank the spending bill that Donald Trump was in favor of, but they ultimately cave at the end because these members represent dark red districts where their constituents also want them to be cheerleaders for the Trump agenda and not obstacles for it. So I don't exactly know where this is going to land. What I do know is that these so-called SALT caucus members are deadly serious. Their predecessors lost re-election in those districts in those areas because they supported that $10,000 imposition, that limit in the 2017 Trump tax law, and they are not ready to tolerate this $30,000 cap that House Republican leaders are proposing to them. And then you've got the hardliners who are demanding steep spending cuts of trillions of dollars. Right now, this bill adds trillions of dollars to the long-term national debt. That goes against everything they say they believe in. So where does this shake out at the end? And where does that leave the politically vulnerable members who worry about Medicaid, the single biggest thing that they're being targeted by Democrats? A lot of open questions.
Yeah, and another question, are they going to be able to do it before the Memorial Day recess? We'll see. Thank you so much, Sahil. I appreciate your